These are this afternoon's top stories. Chamber advocates for vaccinated workers. Antigua Prime Minister hints at early elections. And 4 U.S. states cut off unemployment benefits early. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday newscast. Today is Monday, 14th June 2021. I'm Carla Berridge. President of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Giselle Matthews, is urging the government to allow non-essential businesses to open during a lockdown if their staff are fully vaccinated. Right now, as the country undergoes a 2-week lockdown, only essential businesses are allowed to open. However, in an interview with ZIZ, Mrs. Matthews says, as it stands, there are persons who were among the first to get the jab and are now fully vaccinated, but due to the nature of their jobs, they can't work during the lockdown.
There are persons, employees who work in businesses who bound together and said, let's get vaccinated. And perhaps they can't work because, their business won't fall under essential. And so they're not qualified to serve the public. However, those persons are way more protected than the persons in the essential services who are not vaccinated and working and pose a greater health risk to the public.
She said she hopes that in the future the government may consider revising their stance in the future to allow businesses to function if they can verify that their staff is fully vaccinated.
I am hopeful that after we get through this period of 2 weeks and the SRNOs are being revised, that this will be a conversation that can be had with the Ministry of Health and the government to see how we can work together to allow those persons who are past the threshold of the 2 weeks beyond the second jab, and if they work in an environment and that business, that they can do an assessment on that business. The IDs can be shown for the employees with the vaccination cards, and they might be able to function.
Referring to workers who were vaccinated early, Mrs. Matthews said, quote, "I really believe we should give some benefit for those who took the plunge first and got vaccinated early." To further clarify sections of the recently issued statutory rules and regulations number 21 that deals with restriction of movement, Divisional Commander for District B, Superintendent Lyndon David, visited ZIZ studios during the morning show with GQ on Monday. The regulation stipulates that movement during the hours of 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. is restricted. Superintendent David explained that persons are only able to conduct essential business during these hours.
Persons only allowed to leave their premises to go to deal with essential issues. For example, you're at home, you and your family, you're eating all the time, food is now start to go short. You have to replenish. You also may be cooking, gas is going down, but if it's electricity, only if electricity go well, then that's the issue. So if your gas tank is down, you can go and purchase.
He added that essential businesses that wish to operate during these hours must seek permission from the Chief of Police. The superintendent urged these businesses to ensure that the protocols are being enforced and all the names and contact information of persons are registered.
So if you have your patrons out there, they should not be clustering on each other. They should be ensuring that 6 feet distance maintained, the people are fully masked. When they enter, they are to be hand sanitized. Businesses are to have register to register firstly the names of the person, the temperature, the addresses, the contact information. So just in case that the persons may be infected with the COVID, at least we can have positive contact tracing.
He said vendors who wish to sell their products must go to the public market, noting that it is a more controlled environment. And finally, on the local scene, in light of the current national circumstances regarding the pandemic, the Ministry of Education will host a press conference featuring CSEC examination administration today at the NEMA conference room. Presenters will include Examinations Registrar Solomon Claxton, the Chief Education Officer Dr. Debbie Isaac, and a representative of the NEOC. The conference will begin at 2 p.m. and will be chaired by Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, William Hodge. It will be carried live on ZIZ radio and television, as well as ZIZ's social media platforms. We're moving now to news on the regional scene. Antigua and Barbuda's elections are constitutionally due in 2023, but Prime Minister Gaston Brown is hinting at possibly calling the date before then, intending to send the opposition a letter this week. ABS News reports.
Antigua and Barbuda's next parliamentary election is constitutionally due March 2023. But Prime Minister Gaston Brown can legally call the election anytime before. Speaking Saturday on his weekly radio program, the Prime Minister gives another hint of possible early elections.
The intention is to have a convention later this year, to have all of our candidates ratified, make sure we have the Boundaries Commission in place. We have already appointed the members of the Boundaries Commission.
He says the government will send a letter to the opposition leader this week, asking him to appoint his member.
We will be in full flight this year, ready to call elections as appropriate.
Prime Minister Brown says his party intends to retain all its seats, while gaining All Saints East and St. Luke and Barbuda, the only two it did not secure in the last election.
I believe that we stand a good chance of taking out Pringle. I mean, Pringle literally scraped to the last time around.
Absolutely.
And certainly Barbuda. Well, Trevor has something coming for him, trust me.
The ABLP won 15 of the 17 seats during the 2018 election, which Prime Minister Brown had called 15 months before it was constitutionally due. Jamie J. O'Shea, ABS News.
Fisherfolk in Rocky Point, Clarendon, Jamaica are calling on the Marine Police to clamp down on illegal fishing in the heavily fished waters. The fisherfolk say the continued act is not only threatening their livelihood, but also the fish nursery. Christine Forbes of CVM News reports.
Fisherfolk in Rocky Point, Clarendon say they are being haunted by the actions of other fisherfolk who continue to engage in illegal fishing. They say despite the ban on spiny lobsters, some fisherfolk continue to harvest the crustaceans.
When the lobster season open, chicken lobster still go come here and the egg lobster still go come here. So you want a strict rule upon that.
They point to another practice in which fisherfolk from other beaches allegedly come to Rocky Point using 1-inch seine nets to catch fish. They say this practice is devastating the fish nursery.
I see them used to have some of them seine with them when they dry it, then pick out the bigger one and release the small fish them. But now the man them dry the seine from sea and dry come straight to land. Big fish, small fish. Then pick out the big one them, left the small one them on the land. Then stay upon the land and dead.
The fisherfolk are calling for greater intervention from the Marine Police and the Coast Guard. They are also calling for the establishment of a marine post here in Rocky Point.
And if any time close, no Marine Police will visit the sea very often from the lobster ban.
Following the crash landing of the aircraft in Rocky Point in January, there have been talks of expediting the process of getting a marine post in the area.
Midday, I see them come and them do something severe, and even when you guys was coming on, I thought there was something like that. You understand? I didn't recognize the CVM on the shirt or anything.
In the meantime, he's appealing to all fisherfolk to comply.
I think it's better for everybody. You understand what I say? If you can't avoid fun, do it. I mean, no one can avoid fun, do it.
The Marine Police confirmed that several persons have been arrested and charged in Rocky Point for illegal fishing in recent weeks. Christine Forbes for CVM Live.
And on the international scene, federal unemployment benefits in Alaska, Iowa, Mississippi, and Missouri expired over the weekend, 3 months ahead of the national cutoff. 21 other Republican-led states are set to follow suit. NBC's Kathy Parks reports.
Thousands of Americans will no longer receive their $300 a week benefits after 4 states cut off federal unemployment programs.
I mean, it's helped tremendously because, like I said, I haven't even made this much money, even on half the jobs I work.
Alaska, Iowa, Mississippi, and Missouri were the first to withdraw almost 3 months before the official expiration. 21 other Republican-led states will end their participation in the coming weeks. For full-time workers, combined federal and state unemployment benefits average $650 a week, or roughly $16 an hour. Some governors point to these enhanced benefits for keeping people from looking for jobs, while the labor market picks up.
It should not be a career choice, and we were incenting people to stay home.
This Biloxi-based restaurateur supports ending the program early in Mississippi.
I think we needed that last June. I think last summer. I think that the jobs weren't there. We got back open, but not everybody was able to. But this is a different time.
But others say that factors unique to the pandemic, like virus concerns, kept people at home and dependent on the additional assistance.
No one's going to work as a $300 extra benefit for unemployment insurance. I find it hard to believe that 8 million people aren't going to work because of that.
Sherry Pratt of New Hampshire has been juggling the job search with childcare.
I can't find anybody to care for her if I were to go out and get a full-time job.
Pratt will stop receiving bonus payments June 19th. Economists say nearly 4 million Americans will be affected when these programs expire.
And in lieu of these enhanced unemployment benefits, some states like Arizona and New Hampshire are offering back-to-work bonuses, and these incentives range anywhere between $500 to $2,000.
Police fired tear gas and live rounds into the air to disperse protesters in Nigeria on Sunday, the date known as Democracy Day, which marks Nigeria's move to civilian rule over 20 years ago. Nigerians gathered to vent their anger over the worsening security situation, the country's failing economy, and the government's recent Twitter ban. Al Jazeera's Ahmed Idris reports from Nigeria.
The protest started peacefully, with demonstrators chanting pro-democracy songs. There was heavy police presence, some officers even moving alongside the small crowd, until the first cordon was breached. Then the security forces lobbed rounds of tear gas at the protesters. The crowd, including dozens of journalists, had to run to find safety. Police then fired gunshots into the air. Benga Komolafe, who participated in the first June 12 movement 28 years ago, says the ideals they fought for have been destroyed by the political class. That's why they're back on the streets.
Nigerians owe it a duty to themselves and to their generation yet unborn to begin to come out en masse, just like we came out through the decade that started with June 12, 1993, to come out en masse to begin to say no to this nonsense that is going on.
The June 12 movement was born after the annulment of an election in 1993, arguably the freest in Nigeria's history. The winner of that vote was later arrested by the military and died in detention. What followed were protests and violence that gripped the nation, forcing the military to organize another transfer of power to civilians 6 years later. That transition to civilian power is marked here every year as Democracy Day. But some activists who took part in last year's anti-police brutality protest that turned violent at times stayed away this year, saying street protests like this can easily be hijacked by opportunists.
Nigeria is sitting on a keg of gunpowder, and anything can make it explode. So I am not on the street because I feel that as a Nigerian, one, my loyalty should be to my country.
Protests were also reported in other cities, including the capital Abuja, where pro- and anti-government protesters clashed.
Ahead of the protest, security forces have been deployed in large numbers here in Lagos and across Nigeria. The protests are coming at a time when Nigerians are angry at politicians for failing to rein in widespread violence, corruption, inflation, and poverty.
Worried about a repeat of the anti-police brutality protest last year that resulted in widespread looting and arson, many businesses in Lagos remained closed on Saturday. Earlier, in a nationwide broadcast to mark the day, President Muhammadu Buhari acknowledged existing challenges facing Nigeria. He assured the public the nation's democracy will continue to evolve until such challenges are met. But millions of citizens, burdened by inflation, economic stagnation, and violence, say the change must happen now. Ahmed Idris, Al Jazeera, Lagos, Nigeria.
And now for the weather. The present weather is cloudy. Winds are moderate from the east at 5 miles per hour. Seas are 3 to 5 feet. The weather forecast for today predicts partly sunny skies with a low chance of showers. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a low chance of showers. Sunset today will be at 6:46 p.m. Sunrise tomorrow will be at 5:37 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kyla Barrage.